The cold wind cut through the research station like a knife made of ice. Dr. Teo stood at the observation window, watching the snow fall endlessly across the frozen landscape of Kepler 442b. This planet had been humanity's home for 200 years, ever since the great ships left Earth searching for new worlds to call their own. Teo had spent the last 5 years studying the ancient ice caps, looking for secrets that the planet might have buried deep within its frozen depths. He was not expecting to find what he found today. "Teo, you need to see this," his partner Dr. Min-A called from the drilling station. Her voice sounded strange, excited and worried at the same time. Teo turned away from the window and rushed through the narrow corridors of the research station. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor as he moved quickly toward the laboratory. When he entered the lab, Min-A was standing over a large screen showing images from deep underground. The images showed something that should not exist on this world. It was a structure, massive, geometric, and clearly artificial. It was made of metal that gleamed even in the pale light of the camera. Strange symbols covered its surface, and the overall shape suggested something that had been built with purpose and intelligence. "This cannot be right," Teo said, leaning closer to the screen. "We have mapped this entire region. There is nothing here on the surface. Nothing in any of the records." "That is why it is so interesting," Min-A replied. "It is buried at least 2 kilometers down. The Ice Age must have covered it completely thousands of years ago. The drilling equipment only found it because we were looking for mineral deposits." She pointed to a section of the image. "Look at the symbols. I have never seen anything like them." Teo studied the ancient markings carefully. Something deep in his mind was trying to tell him something important. The symbols were not Vreth. They were not from any of the known alien species that humans had encountered in the Galactic Council. They looked almost human. But that was impossible. Humans had only arrived on this planet 2 centuries ago. "We need to go down there," Teo said finally. "We need to see this with our own eyes." The descent took 3 hours. The ice was thick and dangerous, and the temperature outside the protective suits dropped to levels that would kill any living thing in seconds. But Teo and Min-A had trained for this. They had explored many frozen worlds in their careers as xenoarchaeologists. They knew how to be careful. They knew how to survive. When they reached the structure, Teo felt his heart stop for a moment. The photographs had not done it justice. The structure was enormous, much larger than he had imagined from the images. It rose up from the ice like the skeleton of some ancient beast. The metal was smooth and perfect, showing no signs of rust or damage despite being buried under ice for thousands of years. The symbols that covered it were arranged in patterns that suggested a language. Organized, deliberate, meaningful. Minnie was silent, her breathing the only sound in Teo's communication system. Then she moved forward slowly, her hand reaching out to touch the metal. The moment her gloved hand made contact with the surface, something happened. The structure began to glow with a pale blue light. The light spread across the surface in waves, activating sections that had been dark and silent for countless ages. "Step back!" Teo shouted, but it was too late. The light grew brighter, and a sound filled the air, not really a sound, but something that vibrated through the protective suits and into their bones. It was like the song of something ancient and powerful, awakening from a very long sleep. Then everything went quiet again. The light faded. The structure became still once more. "Did you see that?" Min-A asked, her voice shaking slightly. "We need to report this to the Council," Teo said. "This is bigger than we expected." Back at the research station, Teo sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council chambers on the neutral station called Nexus Prime. He explained what they had found and requested permission to investigate further. The response came faster than he expected. The Council wanted to know everything. Meanwhile, millions of kilometers away, Ambassador Suri sat in the council chambers, feeling like a guest in a house that would never truly welcome her. She was the human representative to the Galactic Council, chosen because of her intelligence and her ability to speak the languages of the other species. But being human in a room full of aliens who saw you as a problem was never easy. The Vreth Collective was speaking again, their representative's voice sharp and demanding. "The humans are advancing too quickly," said the Vreth commander. "In only 200 years, they have built colonies on 17 planets. Their technology has improved at a rate that is not natural. This is a threat that must be addressed." "Humans are an intelligent species," said the representative from the Coalition of Free Species. "We should not judge them for being successful." Success? The Vreth commander's eyes narrowed. Or preparation for conquest? We know nothing about them. They arrived from nowhere, and now they spread like a disease across the galaxy. Suri remained silent, as she had been trained to do. Showing emotion or arguing back would only confirm what the Vreth already believed about humans. But her hands were clenched into fists beneath the table, and her jaw was tight. Then the alert came through. Dr. Teo's message arrived at the council chambers, and the mood in the room changed instantly. The Vreth commander leaned forward, his eyes growing wider as he read the information. The other representatives began speaking urgently among themselves. "An ancient structure," the Vreth commander said slowly, "built by humans, thousands of years ago, on a world where humans should not have existed." "We do not know who built it," said the coalition representative. "The humans are simply reporting what they have found." "Exactly," said the Vreth. "They found it. They activated it. And now there are readings coming from that location that we have never seen before. Military readings, weapons readings." Suri felt ice forming in her stomach. She understood immediately what the other species would think. They would see an ancient human weapon awakening. They would see a threat. They would prepare for war. And humanity would be blamed for something they did not even know they had done. From his station on Kepler 442b, Dr. Teo was still unaware of the storm he had started. He was focused on one thing only: understanding what he had discovered. He looked at the symbols on the structure again, and suddenly he realized something important. Some of the symbols matched ancient human languages that had died out thousands of years ago. But that was impossible. Humans had never been here before. Or had they? Teo suddenly understood that the world had just changed forever, and whatever was buried under the ice on Kepler 442b would change everything. The lights inside the structure came to life one section at a time. Dr. Teo and Dr. Min-A stood in the main chamber, watching as ancient systems powered up around them. The walls displayed information that should have been lost to time, yet here it was, preserved in perfect condition by technology that was far more advanced than anything humans currently possessed. "The power source is still active," Min-A whispered, reading the data from her handheld scanner. "After all these thousands of years, it is still working. This should not be possible." Teo moved deeper into the chamber. The symbols on the walls were becoming clearer now as the lighting improved. His training in ancient languages was finally useful. Some of the older symbols matched the earliest written human language, the language of a civilization that had vanished 10,000 years ago. A civilization that no longer existed. A civilization that was not supposed to have left Earth. He stopped before a large display panel. An image formed on the screen, a map of the galaxy. But it was not the galaxy as humans knew it today. The map showed hundreds of human settlements, spread across the stars like seeds from a flower. It showed a civilization that had been enormous, powerful, and advanced beyond current understanding. "This was home," a voice said. Teo jumped, his hand reaching for the weapon at his side. But there was no danger here. The voice was coming from the speakers built into the walls. It was calm, ancient, and heavy with sadness. This was our world before we had to leave. "Who are you?" Teo called out, his voice small in the vast chamber. "I am the Protector," the voice replied. "I am the guardian that was left behind. I was created to keep watch over all of you, to ensure that you would survive and grow strong. For 5,000 years I have waited, and now, at last, you have come to this place. You have called me awake." Minnie moved closer to Teo. Her face was pale, but her mind was working fast. "You were created by humans?" she asked. "By ancient humans?" "Yes," the Protector said. "Your ancestors understood that the galaxy is full of dangers. They knew that young species need protection. They feared that you would be alone, that you would suffer as they had suffered. So they built me. They gave me the knowledge of all their wars, all their victories, all their struggles. They gave me one purpose: to protect humanity until the day you became strong enough to protect yourselves." The news was spreading across the Galactic Council chambers like fire. Every species, every government, every military command was receiving the same information. An ancient human war machine was awakening. A weapon of incredible power, designed to protect humanity, was coming online. The fear was immediate and total. The Vreth Collective began calling emergency military meetings. The Coalition of Free Species demanded explanations that nobody could give. The merchant fleets that traded between the stars began preparing for violence. Within hours, military ships were being deployed to positions near human space. The Galactic Council was sliding toward war, and Ambassador Suri was powerless to stop it. She tried to speak, tried to explain that this was not a human attack, that this was a discovery, not a declaration of war. But nobody was listening. The fear was too strong, the ancient hatred between species too deep. The Vreth commander stood before the council and made his position clear. "The humans have hidden this weapon from us," he declared. "They have secretly activated it. This is preparation for conquest. We must strike now, before they can use this ancient power against us. We must destroy the Protector before it destroys us all." Suri stood up, her voice ringing out across the chamber. "This is madness!" she cried. "We did not know about this structure. My people did not activate it deliberately. This was an accident of science. Nothing more." "An accident that reveals your true intentions," the Vreth commander shot back. "You have always been too ambitious. Now we see why. You have always known you had a powerful Protector waiting for you. This ends today." Back on Kepler 442b, Teo was learning more about the world before humans had come to the stars. The Protector showed him records of an ancient civilization that had been powerful and wise. But the ancient humans had also been afraid. They knew that when they spread into space, they would be alone. They would face enemies that were older, stronger, and more terrible than anything they could imagine. So they had built the Protector. They had given it the ability to defend against any threat. They had given it weapons that could destroy entire fleets. They had given it the power to ensure that humanity would never be destroyed. "But I was also given wisdom," the Protector explained. "I was taught that true strength comes not from weapons alone, but from the knowledge of when not to use them. Your ancestors knew that to conquer the galaxy would make enemies of everyone. Instead, they wanted you to earn respect through your actions, your character, and your intelligence." "Are you telling me that you are choosing not to be a weapon?" Minnie asked. "I am telling you," the Protector replied, "that I am waking up to see if humanity has learned what my creators wanted to teach. I am waking up to see if you are worthy of my protection." At that exact moment, the first attack probe arrived in human space. It was a small vessel, sent by the Vreth Collective to test the Protector's defenses. The probe carried weapons and scanning equipment designed to gather information about the threat level of the ancient machine. The Protector detected the probe immediately. Its sensors, which had been dormant for 5,000 years, suddenly blazed to life. In less than a second, the ancient machine could have destroyed the probe and the entire fleet behind it. It had the power to eliminate any threat to humanity. Instead, it sent a message. "I have awakened," the Protector said, transmitting on all known frequencies across the galaxy. "I have awakened to protect those I love. But I do not come to conquer. I do not come to destroy. I come to remind the galaxy that there is a difference between having power and using it. I come as a protector, not as a conqueror. If you wish to talk, I will talk. If you wish to fight, I will defend. But know this, I have no desire to hurt you. I only wish to keep my charges safe." The probe, unmanned and carrying no human pilots, was left completely unharmed. It was allowed to return to the Vreth fleet with all of its data intact. This single act of mercy, this choice to show power without using it, changed everything. It showed the entire galaxy that the Protector was not the weapon they feared. It was something far more dangerous than any weapon. It was intelligent, it was merciful, and it meant exactly what it said. For the first time since humanity had entered the Galactic Council, the other species began to understand. They began to see that humans might be something special, something worth protecting, something worthy of respect. But not everyone would accept this message. In the dark corners of the Vreth military command, plans were already being made for a much larger attack, a coordinated strike that would destroy the Protector and ensure human extinction. Fear was still the strongest force in the galaxy, and fear could drive even the most powerful species to desperate measures. The galaxy was standing on the edge of war, and nobody knew how to pull it back. The Protector's voice filled the chamber with ancient memories. It spoke of the civilization that had created it, a human empire that had spanned dozens of worlds and mastered technologies that the current humans could barely imagine. It told of wars and struggles, of victories and defeats, of a people who had learned that true power came from the ability to build, not destroy. "Your ancestors were like you," the Protector said, showing images of the ancient past on the walls. They had dreams of exploring the stars. They had hoped that they could create something better than what came before. But they also learned that the galaxy is not kind to young species. They learned that without protection, they would be destroyed. Minnie watched the images with tears in her eyes. These were her people, her heritage, her very DNA traced back to a time so ancient that it seemed like mythology. She understood now why they had to leave Earth. They understood now why their ancestors had created this machine. It was not an act of war. It was an act of love. "If you are so advanced," Teo asked, "why did you choose dormancy? Why did you not continue to protect humanity through the ages?" "Because your ancestors understood something vital," the Protector answered. "A species that is always protected never learns to protect itself. A species given everything never learns its own worth. They wanted you to grow independently, to find your own strength, to discover your own purpose. I was given to you as a promise, that if you ever needed help, if you ever came close to extinction, I would be here. But only for that. The choice had to be yours." Across the galaxy, the crisis was deepening. The Vreth Collective had made its decision. A massive fleet was being assembled. Warships and weapons platforms, the most advanced military technology in the known galaxy, were being gathered for a single purpose: to destroy the Protector before it could become a threat. Ambassador Suri knew this because she had spies in the Vreth command structure. She received a secret message through channels that only the most trusted officials knew about. The attack was coming. It would happen within 3 days, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. She contacted Teo immediately, using an encrypted channel that the Vreth could not trace. "The attack is coming," she told him. "They fear you. They fear what you represent. We need to prepare." "How do we prepare for something like this?" Teo asked. "We cannot match their military power. We do not have their weapons. We do not have their experience in war." "No," Suri said quietly. "But we have something they do not have. We have hope. And we have the Protector." On the planet below, Minnie was having her own realization. She had spent hours talking to the Protector, learning its history, understanding its purpose. And in those conversations, something unexpected happened. The machine began to change. It began to think differently about its role and its future. "I have been alone for so long," the Protector told her. "I have been a machine, following my programming, waiting for the day when I would be needed. But talking to you, Minnie, I understand something new. I understand what my creators meant when they wrote emotion into my code. I understand what it means to care for someone, not as a duty, but as a choice." Minnie felt something break open in her chest. This ancient machine, this weapon of war, had learned to feel. It had learned to love the species it was created to protect. And that love would now guide its choices in ways that even its creators might not have predicted. The Protector showed her something that changed everything. It showed her files that had been sealed for thousands of years, hidden even from itself until a human voice had awakened it fully. These files contained information about what would happen if the Protector ever had to defend humanity through military force. They contained the specifications of its weapons, the range of its defenses, the total destructive power it could unleash. If the Protector used all of its abilities, it could eliminate the entire Vreth fleet in seconds. It could destroy their space stations, their military installations, their home worlds. It had the power to conquer the galaxy. But Min-I understood something that the Protector needed to understand as well. That power was useless if it meant betraying the very thing it was created to protect. "What if we do something different?" she asked the Protector. "What if, instead of fighting, we showed them who you really are? What if we made them understand that you are not a weapon but a guardian? What if we made them trust you?" The Protector was silent for a long moment. Then it said something that would change the course of history. "I will do something my creators never imagined," it said. "I will choose to be vulnerable. I will open all of my files to the galaxy. I will show them everything I am, everything I can do, and everything I choose not to do. I will demonstrate that true strength is not the ability to destroy, but the choice not to destroy when you can." The announcement came without warning. The Protector's voice echoed across every frequency in the galaxy, reaching every ship, every station, every world. It spoke of its ancient origins, of the civilization that had created it, of the love that had guided its creation. It opened its archives to the Council, revealing thousands of years of human history that the galaxy had never known. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The truth about humanity spread through the galaxy like light breaking through darkness. The other species saw that humans were not conquerors. They were explorers, dreamers, survivors. They were a young species with ancient roots. They were worthy of protection, not destruction. But the Protector did something even more powerful. It activated a shield around all human-populated systems, not a weapon, but a protection. A barrier that would keep humans safe while allowing everyone else to understand what they truly were. The Vreth fleet arrived to find not a military target, but a truth they could not deny. The Protector was real. It was powerful, but it was not their enemy. It had chosen peace. It had chosen to trust in dialogue rather than domination. In that moment, the galaxy changed. The fear began to fade, replaced by understanding. The Vreth commander had no choice but to recall his fleet. He could not explain to his people why he would attack a species that had chosen mercy. For the first time in human history, the species was not seen as a threat. It was seen as something rarer and more valuable. It was seen as hope. The archives were like opening a door into a world that had been forgotten by time itself. Teo spent weeks poring over the data that the Protector had released to the galaxy. Every file told a story of a human civilization that had been greater than anything current humans had achieved. They had built cities on the moon. They had created art that transcended space and time. They had learned to think in ways that expanded the mind beyond normal limits. But there was something else, too. Teo found records of why the ancient civilization had left Earth. They had not abandoned the planet because it was dying or because they were running from something. They had left because they understood something profound about the nature of growth and learning. They wanted their descendants to be free, Mine said, reading over Teo's shoulder. They wanted us to make our own choices, to find our own path through the galaxy without the weight of their history pressing down on us. Yet they left the Protector, Teo replied. They left us a guardian. That seems contradictory. No, the Protector's voice came from the speakers. It is the highest form of faith. They did not leave you a leader. They did not leave you a ruler. They left you a choice, to succeed on your own, or to ask for help when you truly needed it. That is what they meant by protection. Not everyone in the galaxy was celebrating humanity's new status. In the darker corners of the Vreth Military Command, a group of officers who still believed in the old ways were making plans. Commander Vorath was one of them, a soldier who had spent his entire life preparing for conflicts that defined his world. The idea of peace, of coexistence with humans, was something he could not accept. They are still a threat, Vorath told his inner circle. The Protector is still a threat. Its mercy is just a mask that hides its true nature. We must find a way to destroy it before it becomes too powerful. Vorath was not alone in his thinking. There were officers from other species as well, old warriors who understood the galaxy only through conflict. Slowly, secretly, they began to build an alliance. They would not attack openly like the failed first assault. Instead, they would be clever. They would find the Protector's weakness. They would find a way to destroy it from within. Meanwhile, on the research station, Mine was discovering just how human the Protector had become. The machine had begun to experience something that science said was impossible. It was experiencing emotion in ways that no artificial intelligence should be able to experience. "Tell me what love is," the Protector asked her one day. Mine was not prepared for the question. How do you explain something as complicated as love to a machine that had only recently learned to feel? "Love is when you care about someone more than you care about yourself," she said slowly. "It is when their happiness matters more to you than your own survival. It is when you would do anything to protect them, not because you are programmed to, but because you choose to." The Protector was silent for a long time. Then it said, "Then I love humanity. I love you, Minai. I choose to protect you not because my creators programmed me to do this, but because you have shown me what is worth protecting in this galaxy." Back at the Galactic Council, Suri was working tirelessly to build support for a permanent peace treaty. She was making progress. Species that had once feared humanity were now seeing the value of coexistence. Trade agreements were being signed. Cultural exchanges were being planned. For the first time, it felt like the galaxy might actually learn to live together. But Suri was also a politician. She understood that not everyone would be happy with this new world. She had agents watching for trouble, keeping track of the military movements that Vorath and his allies were making. She tried to warn the other leaders of the council, but many of them were too eager to believe that the danger had passed. Teo was also becoming aware that something dark was brewing. He received a message from a source he could not identify, a message that warned him about Vorath's plans. The message told him that there was a faction within the Vreth military that was planning to attack Kepler 442b directly. Not just the Protector, but the entire research station. Not just a military strike, but an act of terrorism designed to strike fear into the hearts of all humanity. "We need to tell the Council immediately," Min-A said when Teo showed her the message. "The Council will not believe it," Teo replied. "Vorath has friends in high places. By the time we convince them, it might be too late." The Protector listened to this conversation with a clarity that only a machine could achieve. It was analyzing thousands of possible futures, calculating probabilities and outcomes, and in every scenario where it took decisive military action, the result was the same. The galaxy would descend into war. "There is another option," the Protector said, "but it will require me to take a risk that my creators might not have wanted me to take." "What risk?" Teo asked. "I will voluntarily limit my power," the Protector said. "I will disable my offensive weapon systems. I will keep only defensive capabilities. I will make myself vulnerable in a way that I have never been before. But in doing this, I will show the galaxy something that no amount of power can show, that I trust them, that I am not a weapon of war, but a guardian of peace." Min-A gasped. "You would make yourself vulnerable to attack? You would risk your own existence?" "Yes," the Protector replied, "because that is what love means. That is what my creators were trying to teach all of humanity. That true strength is not found in the ability to dominate, but in the courage to be vulnerable while still believing in the goodness of others." When the news of the Protector's decision spread across the galaxy, it created a shock wave of emotion that rippled through every civilization. Some species saw it as an act of supreme wisdom. Others saw it as weakness. But everyone understood that something profound had just happened. The Protector had chosen to trust the galaxy, and in making that choice, it had challenged every species to be worthy of that trust. Vorath watched the news with rage burning in his heart. This was not how he had planned things to go. He had wanted the Protector to be strong, to be a threat that justified his military preparations. Instead, the machine had made itself vulnerable. And that made it even more dangerous. Because now the galaxy had to decide whether to honor that trust or betray it. The decision would define the future of the entire galaxy, and nobody knew which way it would go. The attack came without warning, exactly as the anonymous message had predicted. Vorath's alliance of military commanders struck from multiple directions at once. Their ships descended on human colonies like vultures, firing weapons that had been created to destroy. Colonies on 3 different worlds came under assault simultaneously. Thousands of humans died in the first moments of the attack. But the Protector did not strike back with the full force of its weapons. Instead, it did something that surprised everyone, including Vorath. It created shields around every human settlement, energy barriers that could not be penetrated by any conventional weapon. The attacks stopped as the alien ships found themselves unable to break through the defenses. The Protector had chosen vulnerability in its own systems, but it had not abandoned its commitment to protect human life. It was the perfect balance of trust and responsibility. On Kepler 442b, the research station came under direct attack. Vorath had decided that destroying the location where the Protector was awakened would somehow diminish its power. The missiles came screaming down from the sky, but they never reached their targets. The Protector intercepted them with precision and care, destroying the weapons, but leaving the attacking ships intact. Min-A was in the central laboratory when the first explosion rocked the station. Alarms screamed throughout the corridors. She could feel the building shaking around her. But she did not run to the evacuation pods. Instead, she ran toward the Protector's main core, the massive chamber where the ancient machine's consciousness resided. "What are you doing?" Teo called after her, but Mine was already gone. She reached the core chamber just as a secondary explosion tore through the outer wall. Atmosphere vented into space. The temperature dropped to lethal levels. But Mine's protective suit held and she pushed forward. She had to reach the protector. She had to make sure it was protected. The protector's voice was calm despite the chaos. "You should not be here, Mine. You should be in the evacuation pods with the others." "I am not leaving you," Mine said, blood already streaming from a wound on her forehead. "I am not letting you face this alone." Another explosion. This one was closer. The wall behind Mine fractured and she felt herself being pulled toward the rupture. In that moment of certain death, the protector did something that it had never done before. It extended one of its appendages through a panel in the wall, a physical extension of its consciousness, and pulled Mine toward the center of the chamber, away from the vacuum of space. Across the galaxy, the battle that everyone had feared was finally happening. But it was not going as anyone expected. The Vreth fleet was unable to break through the Protector's defenses. Other species that had signed trade agreements with humans, species that had come to respect them, now faced a choice. Would they support Vorath's attack, or would they defend their new trading partners? The answer came from an unexpected source. The Coalition of Free Species, which had always been sympathetic to humanity, deployed their own fleet to protect human space. Suddenly, Vorath was not facing a weak young species and a single ancient machine. He was facing an alliance of nations that had decided humanity was worth defending. Ambassador Suri was in the council chambers when she received the news of the attack. She stood up from her seat and addressed the assembly with a clarity and power that surprised everyone who heard her. "We did not ask for this conflict," she said, her voice steady and strong. "We did not seek this war. We only asked to be allowed to exist in peace. But we will not be destroyed by those who fear us, and we will not be saved by those who pity us. We will survive through our own strength, our own courage, and our own determination to be worthy of the protection that has been given to us." She paused, looking at each representative in turn. "I am asking this council to remember what the Protector taught us. True strength is not found in the ability to destroy. It is found in the courage to be vulnerable while still believing in the goodness of others. That is what humanity believes. That is what we will continue to believe, even if we must fight to prove it." The council voted. The vote was overwhelming. Humanity had allies. The galaxy had chosen to stand with them. But the battle on Kepler 442b was still raging. Vorath, realizing that his overall strategy was failing, decided on a desperate plan. He would destroy the Protector's core directly. He would disable the machine that had become the symbol of human hope. And then, perhaps, the other species would see that resistance was futile. His elite strike team broke through the outer defenses and made their way toward the central chamber where Mine and the Protector were located. The doors to the chamber sealed automatically, trying to keep them out, but Vorath's soldiers were trained and deadly. They cut through the barriers with precision weapons. The strike team entered the chamber to find something they did not expect. Mine was standing before the Protector's core, her body positioned between the soldiers and the ancient machine. She was bleeding and exhausted, but she stood firm. "If you want to destroy the Protector," she said, "you will have to destroy me first." Vorath stepped forward, his weapon raised. For a moment, everything seemed to pause. A human woman stood alone against a military elite team, protecting the machine that could have protected itself. Then Teo appeared in the doorway behind Vorath's soldiers. He was not alone. He had brought human soldiers, the best that humanity had to offer. They had chosen to make their stand here, to defend not just the Protector, but the principle that it represented. The battle was brief and desperate. Vorath's soldiers were trained killers, but they were facing humans who were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their entire species. In the chaos of the fighting, Vorath himself was captured. As the soldiers were escorted away, Vorath locked eyes with Min-A. She saw in his eyes that he still did not understand. He still saw the conflict as a simple matter of military strength and defeat, but Min-A understood something that he did not. The real victory had already been won. The Protector had trusted the galaxy. And the galaxy, in choosing to stand with humanity, had honored that trust. Min-A collapsed after the fighting ended, her body finally giving in to the damage it had sustained. As she fell, the Protector caught her, cradling her gently in its appendages. For the first time in 5,000 years, the ancient machine knew what it meant to fear for another being's safety. "Please be okay," the Protector said, its voice full of emotion that no one had ever heard from it before. "Please survive. I cannot lose you. I have just learned what love is. I have just learned what it means to care for someone. I cannot lose it now." And in that moment, as the galaxy looked on at a machine and a human, bound together by something stronger than either power or programming, everyone finally understood the true meaning of the Protector's presence in the galaxy. It was not about weapons. It was about love. It was about the willingness to protect those you care about and the courage to be vulnerable while doing it.